Yep, we are just going to do a link to us in the Facebook chat and pin it for the Zoom room in case anybody wants to join. And then we should be good to go. Oh, I just sent that to us. Here we go. Okay. Then I should just hit my button here. And everything should work in theory. Are we up? I think we're up. Okay. Hello, everybody out there on the internet. I am joined today with Irene Bal from Loyola University. She's my current professor in my grad class. And when I emailed her at 5 o'clock this morning to say, would you like to do this with me? She graciously accepted. And I very much appreciate it. Because in our current class, we're talking about HyperDocs, or we just finished a week on HyperDocs. And um, I have never, I've used online Google Docs worksheets. I have substituted them for like my old print things, but I haven't really gone into the deep end of all those stuff that you can do. And now that I've seen HyperDocs, it's kind of like really intuitive. It's like, why wasn't I doing this? So that's been really, really great. So Irene, if you want to jump in and talk a little bit about that, you can. If not, I can press onward and just kind of show off some of the stuff we talked about.
Sure. So I'll give a very brief background on how I kind of landed into HyperDocs. So I'm K-12 background, and as Danny said, I'm in Loyola now. And so I used HyperDocs, and I was an instructional tech coach, and I had teachers using them. But when I came to Loyola in the higher ed realm, it's much more structured and more traditional type of education. And I was redesigning this class that Danny's now taking, and it's all about innovation and education. And one thing I really wanted the learners in the online space, we had just started our online cohorts. This was about 2 years ago. And I really wanted the online students to have the same type of hands-on experience that my face-to-face students received. And so I was able in my face-to-face classes to bring in drones and dash and dots and robotics and maker spaces and all of these really fun, kind of innovative, pedagogical, as well as tech tool oriented strategies that are being used in K-12. But in the online space, everyone's at their own home. We have various resources and various skills. And I was really kind of lost on how I could bring these to my online learners, and not just as articles or things to consume, but actually for them to engage in. So I was at EdChange Global, which is it's a digital conference, online conference every summer. And I was in a group, we were talking about HyperDocs, and it hit me that this was the perfect medium to get my learners online and my online learners hands-on and engaging. And the great thing about HyperDocs is it's not just consumption of material, but your learners end up finding resources that relate to them. So it becomes very personalized, and it also becomes, you can easily differentiate the learners because it really supports the self-pacing in the learning. And so I have a lot of learners that kind of fall in the hole of resources. So they fall in kind of that resource hole and they start really getting into the resources. I have other learners that know stuff so they can skip those sections and move on. And so it really helps with the various backgrounds of the learners.
Yeah, I actually just had my first full online day of teaching. Like I just had all three synchronous sessions all in a row, and I would have like 15 minutes in between, and was running up and just like grabbing a snack or going to the bathroom, and I was like talking to my wife. I'm like, I can't believe how tired I am. Like I'm as tired as I am at school. But why I bring that up is I had my students do a survey today, and all of them are like across the board, most of them are saying exactly that, of like that's what they miss about school. They miss the hands-on stuff. And a lot of their teachers currently are sending them work to do for the day, and then every day they get work to do for the day. And then of course from Loyola, what I learned is set up everything for the week and have them work through it. But as I was talking to him, I was like, yeah, we need to set up a HyperDoc for you guys next week. We need to have you guys in a group where you're working together at your own pace across a long span of time, because that's going to make you feel like you are at school, right? Like in a good way, in all of that. I mentioned it in another stream, but one of our students right before we left said that when we were moving to online, he was worried that all that was going to be left of school was the work and none of the fun, like none of the stuff that he wanted. So that's something I've been really kind of hyper, no pun intended, focused on for that. So I'm going to go share my screen here, and the first thing we'll see here is Irene, your HyperDoc on HyperDocs, which I love, right? Like a hat on a hat, but the best way possible. And this was something that I really wanted to share because, and I'll put a link to it on the streams as well when they're up as videos later. But it's just um, takes you through exactly what we're talking about with a hyperdoc, of the fact that you're not just trying to create a document that has links on it. You're creating an assignment in and of itself that is going to then ask students to do things every step of the way and show off what they know. So you can see there's a video that stops in here. And Irene, if you want to jump in and take over at any point, feel free, or correct me or add. I loved this part. This is the part that really spoke to me of, is a hyperdoc doc just a document with links? And there were a couple of these different graphics that really showed that. So it's not just consumption of information. Irene talked about that a second ago. It's not just a Google product. It's not one size fits all. It's a way of differentiating. And I know that's a word, especially in my school, that we're really going around a lot of, like, how do we differentiate? And I think that it's something that, it's a term that people are getting exhausted by, because it feels like it's work. It feels like it is more work that you have to do. But this is a perfect example of how, if you front load that work, if you plan it into the assignment, then the differentiation happens on its own, as opposed to you having to like handhold, which is what I think people tend to think differentiation is: constantly assessing where this kid is and lifting them up, or this kid's too far ahead and bringing them down. And I think that that was something that I really liked there. I think that was the second one I clicked. No, it was that was the same one there. But there's another version of that here, where, yeah, the whole idea is that it's a longer scale thing that students have to work on together. And I'll pause there for a second, Irene, if you want to jump in.
Yeah, so as Danny's showing this hyperdoc, I always I like to remind my students. So my students are all adults; they're most of them are current educators in classrooms. I don't create hyperdocs or the hyperdocs that like Danny and my students use are built for adults. They're not built for K-12 students. So as Danny's going through it, you might say they're pretty wordy. And with adult learners, you have to be a little bit more explicit in the directions, and with K-12 sometimes you do as well. But I would never take this hyperdoc itself and create it and give it to a kindergartner. It's very much not appropriate. And that's one of the things I love about hyperdocs, and Danny's showing it now. There are templates and already created lessons out there. I created the hyperdoc that Danny's showcasing. I created from scratch, and it is quite time consuming to create hyperdocs from scratch. But there are amazing K-12 hyperdocs available for you, which are great. And hyperdocs themselves are typically conducted, especially in K-12, face to face in the classroom. So my online learners were never face to face. I don't use synchronous time to go through a hyperdoc because for me it's a waste of my students' time. It's not needed. So I developed mine to be completely asynchronous. Now that all of us are almost completely online or completely asynchronous online, you might want to explore too how you can do some direct instruction, or pull your learners back together within a hyperdoc itself, or if you're meeting with your students synchronously, when you can, what information do you need to go through together as a whole group, and then what information can you let go and let them do it on their own time.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's the balance I've been trying to strike currently with all of that. And it's funny when I put that survey out and I asked students if they wanted to meet with me more often or not, they're leaning towards wanting to meet with me more often for the guidance. But then when I asked the same question of like, are my expectations clear? Did I communicate clearly with you through my weekly document that I set up for everything that it said? And like across the board, they were all like, "Yep, I know exactly what I want to do." I think they just miss talking because my class is a lot of discussion, right? It's an English class. This was not the one that I had found for our class. I thought it was, but this is a really basic one. But I had just went to a site that I'm going to show in just a second here, or I kind of was showing while Irene was talking. This is a site called Teachers Give Teachers. And all I did was just search Gatsby, which is what I'm currently talking about in my class. And then there's like 3 or 4 that people have already made for that topic that I can explore. And you can see that sometimes they're Google Documents, sometimes they are Google Slides. And then, like we always do as educators, we would read through and we would decide, does this work for me? Is this, what am I going to adjust to make this something that I could use in my classroom?
So, and it's called Teachers Give Teachers because these are all free. So the idea of
Yes.
HyperDocs is that they're supposed to be free. And you can, if you find one like this American Dream HyperDoc that Danny just showed us, if you find one that you can use, then essentially you can make a copy of it or download it into like a Microsoft product. And you can edit what you need for your class and then utilize it within your class. And the whole idea is that you share alike so that you're not editing someone else's work and then trying to profit off of it. But the idea is that we're creating amazing resources. It's kind of the open education resource realm of learning. And so finding what you can use, and the ones that I've created as well, that Danny was showcasing, my very wordy one, they're all Creative Commons as well. So anyone can use them. Mine are more specific for graduate level students, so they're less used, but they're made for anyone to make a copy and edit as needed and use.
And I will put the link to your website, Irene, in the description of the videos, and then when I post this on Facebook later. Um, Great. So still learning live streaming, so I might just check in with Facebook to make sure nobody's chatting there. Sorry, you're getting a double view of that.
You're
Okay,
getting
so
the back end. That's nice.
yeah, I didn't mean to send that one. Um, okay, so the last thing I guess we'll just talk about is the actual HyperDocs website, which is hyperdocs.co. And again, this is just a website that you can go and explore. It has templates if you want to try to build your own, but would like to start not from square zero. It has samples, and then of course there's the Teachers Give Teachers that you can look at there. I didn't even see this one before, but apparently there's HyperDocs. They stream as well, and there's some resources there. But I trust that you can explore all those resources on your own, and I won't walk you through every single
Can you
step of
go to
that.
the templates
Yeah,
page?
absolutely can do.
So um, as you can see on the screen, there's a lot of different templates. I ended up using just this basic HyperDoc template for my HyperDoc. So Danny said he's going to share my website. I have the HyperDocs that I created for my grad course on my website, and they're more like instructional strategies and innovative tech. But as you were saying, you can use any of these templates. Can you go back to the
Yeah, I tried to open one. It's just taking
okay,
a
but
bit.
there are different types of templates. So I think it's really important, depending on the age you're teaching, some templates and the content, some templates will be more appropriate than others. And so there isn't always this like 7-piece template, like there's the 5, this topic H, topic X HyperDoc is more of like the 5E lesson plan for those science teachers out there. There's more simple ones if you scroll back up.
Yep.
There's more simple ones that have 3 or just 4 categories. A lot of the pre-K through 3rd grade, the early elementary, enjoy these more simplistic templates. And so they don't have to be these super long, wordy ones. And actually, one of the templates that I like the best can you go back to the American Dream slides? I'm like pointing on my screen.
The
Like the
American.
fifth tab you have open.
Yeah, sorry, my Zoom is up at the top there. Yeah, and click
Can
this
you,
one. This
yeah.
one. Yeah.
So one of my favorite templates is actually slides. And so Danny's class will start seeing slides in their third next week. And what I like about slides is it chunks the information a little bit better. So the very first HyperDoc on HyperDocs, the one he was showcasing, it's just a long scroll of information. And as people input, it gets longer and longer with more pages. I developed this first one like this because this is the typical format. Google Docs, a document is the typical format that you find these, but it's not chunked well. It's easy to get lost. What page am I on now? I find the slides are a lot easier to chunk the information, make it more explicit, and as Danny progresses in the class, he'll start seeing more and more in slides format because they're much easier to create as well, and it's less overwhelming for learners. So I think in exploring the templates and the different documents, also looking at like what's feasible for your learners and what would be best for them.
Yeah, just a shout out to Google Slides. Kelly Keene used them a lot with us. And she actually had us create a journal in Google Slides, and that like blew my mind. And now I exclusively use that with my English classes for exactly the same reasons that you said. It is like so much easier to chunk the information. It is so much more clear. And it's just more visual. I actually changed my inspired by Dr. Keene as well. I changed my syllabus this year to be completely slides and completely visual, and I got a lot of good response from that. It took time, probably more time than it should have, but it was I found it really worth it. I liked it a lot.
And for those of you that are not Google people or don't do Google's, HyperDocs can be used in other platforms. So it was originally developed in Google, but you can do it in Microsoft. I've seen people do it in OneNote, create HyperDocs in OneNote. I've seen people create them in, PowerPoint, Word, any LMS platform, depending on what you have. So Google Classroom, Schoology, where the HyperDoc itself is just placed within a couple of assignments. And it can be any platform really. It's more of the packaging of material and shifting from the students consuming the information and actually doing more application and engagement in the information.
Yeah. Great. So I'll just check our chat. I don't have my YouTube chat up because I am a really professional and good streamer. I have Facebook chat up real quick for a second here, and you'll get a double view of us from 3 seconds ago. But I'll watch this for a second if anybody wants to jump in with any questions. And then there is the Zoom link pinned as well on Facebook, at least. And I think it's in the description if you're watching on YouTube, but I have 3 subscribers there, so you're probably not. Um, but if you want to join into this actual Zoom session and come and ask us questions, you can do that too. I'll just check my chat on that too.
And I'm on YouTube. I don't see any chat on the YouTube either.
Gotcha. Thank you.
Well, as we're checking chat, something I recommend if you're new to it or thinking about it, I think about using HyperDocs, especially as we're considering flipping online, or some of you have already flipped online, a lot of you probably have, is to look through the resources on the Teachers Give Teachers site before jumping into creating your own. It takes a long time to create your own, and it'd be easier to modify something. A ton of lessons out there. Based on content like Danny was showing us, that would be more helpful to edit and then send out to your students for your time on task, as well as ability in starting to create them rather than starting from scratch and just trying to create something new.
Yeah, and I'll say, I do teach high school learners, which I know it's going to be more difficult if you are going online with younger learners, especially. But for me, my guys, I teach in an all male environment. My guys are really, really great about just um, like if I try something and I ask them for feedback, they'll tell me and like very collegiately. And so if you're worried about trying this, I say just try it, and they'll give you feedback as long as you give them. I use Poll Everywhere a lot with them, some Pear Deck too, which I'm going to do a session on later this week. Um, for that as well. So those are all options. But I don't think I saw any chat questions coming in, so we'll probably just end this here. Irene, this was so kind of you to do. Thank you so much for
Thanks for
jumping
having
in.
me. Thanks
Yeah.
for having me.
All right. Enjoy social distance, and I'll see you online. Bye.
Bye, everyone.